Indiana Newsdesk is made possible in part by Maller-Grodner Attorneys, providing legal services to clients and the community. Maller-Grodner Attorneys, understanding expertise results. Bloomington and Indianapolis. On the web at lawmg.com. IU Center for Rural Engagement, extending IU Bloomington resources to improve Hoosier lives in partnership with communities and organizations. rural.indiana.edu. Smithville Fiber Internet, Security Solutions and Voice in Southern Indiana. More information at smithville.com. Bunger and Robertson, attorneys at law since 1949, utilizing experience, knowledge, and resources to help individuals and families recover in personal injury matters. Information at lawbr.com. And by WTIU members. Thank you.
Coming up on Indiana Newsdesk. Massive cuts in funding and elimination of federal programs by the Trump administration are beginning to affect universities and research institutions.
I refuse to accept a world where the pursuit of knowledge is dictated by political agendas rather than facts.
Scholars and scientists are urging Indiana University to speak out against the cuts. With Republican congressmen and women canceling town halls across the country, constituents of Erin Houchin still turned out for one called-off event in Bedford.
It was a great experience, although it wasn't really the experience because our representative chose not to show up, and that was really terrible.
The protesters urged Houchin to hear them out. And despite the unpredictability of the weather, warmer temperatures mean it's time to start planting flowers. At IU, the annual beautification has begun. These stories and more right now on Indiana Newsdesk. Hello and welcome to Indiana Newsdesk. I'm Perry Metz, sitting in for the vacationing Joe Wren. Across the country, Republican lawmakers in Congress have been canceling town halls. That comes after constituents have disrupted the meetings, attacking policies and cuts being made at the federal level. As Clayton Baumgarth reports, constituents in Representative Erin Houchin's 9th District turned up at one canceled event to protest what they see as the Congresswoman's lack of availability.
About 30 people held a town hall in Bedford on Tuesday, with the chair sat at the front symbolizing the absence of Erin Houchin or any of her staff members. The chair held a rubber chicken and pictures of the Congresswoman.
Talking to an empty chair was a way for us to voice our frustrations to anything. If we have to talk to an empty chair, we have to talk to an empty chair. And then we're also communing with each other. So I feel like it was really important in this day and age for us to know that we have community and know we're not screaming to the void.
Retired Bloomington City Councilmember Susan Sandberg read a letter imploring Houchin to act.
Please, I beg you now to stand against the unconstitutional and inhumane actions of President Trump and Citizen Musk and for the well-being and the fair treatment of our American workers. It is not too late to do this.
Houchin's team had a roundtable discussion with constituents scheduled at the Stonegate Arts and Education Center. But the Congresswoman's office canceled, saying mobile office hours were being, quote, put on pause. House Speaker Mike Johnson has suggested Republican lawmakers stop doing town halls amid examples of backlash becoming national news.
It was a great experience, although it wasn't really the experience because our representative chose not to show up, and that was really terrible.
People in Bedford showed up anyway with protest signs saying, "Where is Houchin hiding?" and "Missing Erin Houchin." Many asked Houchin to listen to her constituents.
Erin, I'll tell you what Hoosiers want. What they want is a working government. A government that works for them. They don't want to worry about whether their Social Security or Medicaid or Medicare is going to be taken away.
After about 2 hours, some protesters marched around the Bedford town square. Others came out of nearby businesses to shout their support for Trump and Musk. Houchin's office did not respond to WTIU's questions. For Indiana Newsdesk, I'm Clayton Baumgarth.
Indiana Senator Todd Young is scheduled to speak at a Bloomington Chamber of Commerce event on April 15th at the Convention Center. The event is open to the public, but registration is required and costs $50 for non-chamber members. Massive cuts to the federal government are trickling down to universities. At Indiana University, confusion is spreading as agencies cut people and grants. Higher education reporter Aubrey Wright digs into the impact and how some scientists are pushing back.
Students are sounding the alarm for climate change in the Indiana State House. And one of them, Elena Kruper, says climate researchers and scientists are facing a defining moment.
We will not allow science to be censored, devalued, or ignored.
To Kruper, threats to science aren't theoretical or distant. They're here. Funding is being cut or frozen, and diversity, equity, and inclusion programs are being dismantled.
I refuse to accept a world where the pursuit of knowledge is dictated by political agendas rather than facts.
On Indiana University's campus, Kruper and the Advocates for Science student group are getting to work by promoting scientific research in evidence-based policy. As a sustainability scholar, Kruper is used to political pushback, but now it's spreading.
And so seeing other sciences now being politicized is very scary to me, because I just never thought that could happen.
The Trump administration is making massive cuts to federal agencies. American universities could lose billions in grant money from the National Institutes of Health, the National Science Foundation, and the U.S. Agency for International Development. These agencies are also cutting jobs.
It's placed a deep cloud over everything we do, and particularly concerning for our students who are seeking careers and opportunities and a future related to their interest in science.
Hamburger has worked with IU's grassroots advocacy group, Concerned Scientists. He says the biggest threat is a distrust of science.
It's a moment full of uncertainty, fear, and concern on a lot of fronts.
Amid all of these changes and executive orders, Kruper says scientists and students are trying to adjust. She says some data is missing. For example, a tool she used last semester, the government's environmental justice screening tool, no longer exists.
I think that the censorship of data is one of the biggest problems that's going on.
And some may work around touchy topics and certain terms in grant proposals.
I'm going to be using, or I would have been using, words like climate crisis or sustainability. And those are flagged right now by the administration because they're seen as dirty words, which is completely insane to me.
To Kruper, potential cuts to the DEI programs means students from minority communities can't continue their education in the sciences.
Without those scholarships, they don't have the money that they need to support themselves for housing and to support their education.
The problem stretches beyond classrooms and labs. For example, Hamburger studies earthquakes and related natural hazards. Preventing these disasters has received bipartisan support in the past, but now that infrastructure is being dismantled.
It's incredibly short-sighted, and it undermines everything from the economy to healthcare to security and kind of every other issue that will affect Americans in the decades to come.
Concerned Scientists, Advocates for Science, and the Wonderlab Museum of Science wrote to IU and asked them to speak up in a confusing time.
Through all of the last 30 years that Wonderlab has been in existence, we've worked closely with Indiana University science faculty. Numerous, rich, varied partnerships.
The university didn't respond to requests for comment.
We would like to hear from our administration on where they stand, and our students would like to hear from them. They're in the most vulnerable position that they've been in decades.
In her speech at the State House, Kruper says she believes they can change the tide. She may have to reassess her career, but still, she says she's grateful for her community and mentors at IU.
I'm so thankful to be a part of a community that that values science and that is willing to fight back and use their voices to advocate for our community.
For Indiana Newsdesk, I'm Aubrey Wright.
Governor Mike Braun was at the White House Thursday when President Donald Trump signed an executive order to start eliminating the Department of Education. In a social media post, Braun said he supports Trump's plan to return authority over education to the states, saying it will, quote, put parents in the driver's seat, unquote. It's unclear how the order will eventually impact Indiana. The state's K-12 schools receive around $1.8 billion in federal funding each year. We're joined now by Clayton Baumgarth for more headlines from around the state. Clayton?
Perry, thank you. Governor Braun spoke to a crowd of a couple hundred people at the State House Monday who were rallying for property tax relief, or in many cases, the elimination of property taxes altogether. Indiana Public Broadcasting's Brandon Smith reports the event was led by conservative local radio hosts who repeatedly called on the crowd to vote out lawmakers who didn't back significant relief.
Braun told the cheering crowd down the hallway from the House and Senate chambers that people need to get their minds right about real property tax relief.
They say they're not hearing it. Well, they're going to be hearing it after today if they haven't before.
The rally featured the lieutenant governor, state lawmakers, and local officials like Marshall County Commissioner Jesse Bohannon, who had a message for his fellow local leaders.
We cannot fight this. It is inevitable. Let's get behind it and help it get done right.
Legislative debate over property tax relief will continue the rest of session. For Indiana Public Broadcasting, I'm Brandon Smith at the State House.
State lawmakers want to remove the income cap on Indiana's school voucher program. Parents who choose vouchers say they would make the system more simpler and more equitable. But public school officials say the cost of expanding vouchers comes at a price to traditional public schools. They say it puts funding for programs such as safety and student mental health at risk.
Yet with future funding in question and rising operational costs such as transportation, utilities, and insurance, schools are being forced to make difficult financial decisions. I fear that without sustained funding, these critical programs will be at risk.
The state's Legislative Services Agency estimates voucher expansion would cost Indiana about $183 million over 2 years. The Indiana Department of Health, issued new guidance to local and county health departments to stop accepting gender change requests for Indiana birth records. In an email obtained by Indiana Public Broadcasting, IDOH says the new policy is to comply with the governor's March 4th executive order. The process for amending a person's gender on their birth certificate varies from state to state, but it is often the first step in updating legal documents for documenting transgender Americans. The U.S. Department of Agriculture recently cut 2 programs which help schools and food banks buy food from farmers. And as Isabella Vesperini reports, that could put local food assistance for at-risk kids in jeopardy.
Over $1 billion in funding has been canceled for the 2025 fiscal year. Indiana would have received over $21 million from these 2 programs combined. Approximately 60% of the meals Bloomington's Community Kitchen prepares goes to at-risk kids. The kitchen provides food to kids through the Backpack Buddies program and also distributes food to after-school programs at the Boys and Girls Club. Children also receive food during the summer when school is not in session. The USDA cuts will make it harder to provide complete meals to kids who need it.
The less funding we get through the USDA and other programs, the less kids we're going to be able to reach. The less people we're going to be able to feed.
Clower is worried that future potential budget cuts will hinder food access for at-risk kids. He is already preparing for such cuts and looking to find a solution that can provide consistent funding.
If worse came to worse, what parts of the program we would have to cut? For example, in the summer, if we provide breakfast and lunch at one of the Boys and Girls Clubs, does that mean we would only be able to provide lunch and not do the breakfast?
He is already preparing for such cuts and is looking to find a solution that can provide consistent funding. For Indiana Newsdesk, I'm Isabella Vesperini.
The Monroe County Plan Commission is recommending zoning changes to promote single-family over multifamily homes in West Bloomington. By a 6-2 vote, the commission supported rezoning more than 200 properties in the Sunset Hill and Maple Grove Baby Farms neighborhoods from high development to residential 1. The goal is preserving neighborhood character versus landowner discretion and overdevelopment.
I mean, we've been building almost everything but single-family homes. So I think there's something to preserve. It's a way of life.
The issue now goes to the county commissioners. The Monroe County Water Treatment Plant is getting an upgrade. Bloomington Utilities says new chemical feed lines are being installed, which will help disinfect the water supply.
We've experienced some failures in the lines recently, but we have backup lines for this reason, which is why we have not had an interruption in service.
The plant will also receive new backwash pumps to help clean water filters. New LED lights will conserve energy. Zager says old systems, which were overdue for upgrades, will not be replaced immediately so that the plant can avoid service interruptions. And finally, the Indiana Department of Transportation says it will install a new roundabout at the intersection of State Roads 46 and 43 near McCormick's Creek State Park. The project is scheduled for spring 2028 and is meant to improve safety at the intersection, which has a high crash rate. Traveling from Bloomington to Spencer during construction would require a detour through Martinsville. And Perry, the state is also installing a new entrance to the park from the roundabout.
I'll look forward to it. Thanks, Clayton. Coming up next on Indiana Newsdesk.
Spring comes early to IU's campus as workers have started planting over 25,000 flowers around campus. I spoke with landscapers about what the process looks like and what it means to IU's community.
And Indiana University wasted little time finding its next men's head basketball coach, hiring West Virginia's Darren DeVries. These stories and more right here on Indiana Newsdesk.
A change is happening.
Let the groove take over.
Which is perfect. The age of discovery is now.
When you hear it, you know what it is.
I am quite overwhelmed.
It's a joy to be in this world.
Welcome back to Indiana Newsdesk. Indiana's Natural Resources Commission approved a bobcat trapping season in 40 southern Indiana counties this week, allowing up to 250 bobcats to be harvested per year. Clayton Baumgarth has more.
The season runs from November 8th to January 31st and allows licensed trappers to harvest one bobcat a year. The Indiana State Trappers Association says the new rules were adopted as written even after the NRC received nearly 3,000 public comments on the matter.
I mean, there's a lot of us super excited about it. We've been having to release these animals for years.
State lawmakers mandated in 2024 that the Department of Natural Resources establish rules for a bobcat trapping season by July of this year. Many public commenters had hoped that the season would be established with a total statewide bag limit of 0. Though the DNR said that the current bobcat population could support the season, critics like Samantha Chapman with Humane World for Animals argue they haven't provided enough evidence. She said in a statement that the decision to allow the trapping of bobcats without adequate population data contradicts science-based wildlife conservation. Ernie says that once the season starts, the true picture of how large the state's bobcat population is will come into focus.
Whether it's reproduction, food sources, just actual counts where the population truly lies the heaviest. This is the simplest way to collect accurate data.
Ernie also believes that the population numbers are so high that in a couple years, the bag limit will be raised. For Indiana Newsdesk, I'm Clayton Baumgarth.
As the weather outside gets warmer and the days longer, people are beginning to tend to their gardens and flower beds. It's no different at IU, where flowers are planted around campus to welcome the start of spring. Isabella Vesperini joins us for more.
Deciding what to plant is a year-long process. 7 full-time staff get up as early as 5 a.m. to start working, planting about 25,000 pansies in the span of a week when students are away on spring break.
They leave for spring break and come back, and spring has sprung on IU's campus.
Flower and plant seedlings come from all over the country. IU's Landscape Services also gets tulip bulbs from the Netherlands. Seeds ordered at the beginning of every school year arrive in January for IU to plant and nurture in the campus's 2 greenhouses.
Every flower that you see on campus gets grown right here on site.
Johnson says they grow approximately 55,000 plants and flowers per year. They'll reorder about 80% of the flowers that consistently do well and experiment with the other 20%. Vinca hasn't survived well, but pansies have.
March can be so weird in southern Indiana. It can be snowing one day, it can be 75 degrees the next. Pansies are one of the few varieties out there that can stand up to those really cold temperatures. And so they really are an ideal species to kind of give that early color pop that everybody really wants to see. They've been waiting all winter to see that.
For the current fiscal year, IU budgeted $3.7 million for landscape services, which includes snow removal, equipment, and payroll. A beautiful campus not only helps attract students, but some landscapers say it also helps reduce stress and enhances pride in the university. A team meets a year in advance to decide what flowers and plants to order and where to put them. The goal is to emphasize IU's natural woodland environment.
We work as a group to determine what types of plants will be tough enough to survive life on a campus and have that visual impact that will engage people and cause people to maybe smile or, have a better day on a tough day or just have a moment of relaxation.
Williams bases her designs on what her provider says about the plant's size and color. She also considers how much water and sunshine a flower needs and tries to group flowers with similar needs together.
You use that to build a bed that grows, like at Sample Gates. You notice we always have height in the center of the bed, and then it sort of cascades down, and then we have trailers that kind of spill out of the beds. So we always want a combination of those factors in our designs.
Flowers will then be composted over the span of 3 years.
Right now the crew's out top dressing the beds with the flowers from 3 years ago. So there's a cycle, and they really grow well in that compost, so there's nothing really goes to waste here.
Around graduation time in May, the pansies will be replaced with summer annuals such as begonias that last until fall. Reporting from outside the IU auditorium for Indiana Newsdesk, I'm Isabella Vesperini.
Indiana University wasted little time finding a successor to men's basketball coach Mike Woodson. As Pat Bean reports, just 3 days after the season officially ended for the Hoosiers, IU introduced Darren DeVries as its new coach.
About this time last year, Darren DeVries was making the jump from mid-major coach to the big leagues, taking the job at West Virginia in the Big 12 Conference. He led the Mountaineers to a 19-10 record this year, but, like IU, was one of the first 4 teams left out of the NCAA tournament. DeVries says he was looking forward to building on that foundation next season.
However, the opportunity came along to possibly be the head coach at Indiana. A dream job for anyone, but especially for someone that grew up in the Midwest watching the old Big 8 and Big 10 basketball. The chance to lead one of the biggest brands in college basketball was something I could not pass up.
And on Wednesday, DeVries was introduced as the school's 31st men's head basketball coach. IU Athletic Director Scott Dolson says DeVries emerged from a national search he described as deliberate.
Had several candidates, and it became clear that we found our person. And we went after him and we got him. And we couldn't be more thrilled about that.
DeVries' name was in the back of Dolson's mind when he knew he would have to replace Mike Woodson after this season. Dolson says their paths had crossed a couple of times, including at the Battle for Atlantis tournament in the Bahamas in November.
I had no idea we're looking for a coach. More as a basketball fan, watching college basketball, I watched the Gonzaga West Virginia game. We sat there after that game just going, wow, so impressive how West Virginia played.
IU is hoping DeVries can bring that style to Simon Scott Assembly Hall. His roster next season is unlikely to look much like this year's. Omar Ballo, Anthony Leal, and Trey Galloway have no more eligibility left, and Malik Renew and Gabe Cupps have entered the transfer portal. DeVries says which Hoosiers return next season depends on their fit.
If we have some guys on the current roster that still would love to be here, and it seems to make sense for both of us, let's do that. And if there's some guys that feel like they could find a better connection somewhere else, there's no hard feelings there.
He's tasked with getting Indiana back to regularly challenging for Big Ten and NCAA titles. But the Hoosiers haven't made the Final Four in more than 2 decades and have gone 2 years without an NCAA tournament berth.
Everything is in place here for us to have the opportunity to win and to win at a high level. Now our job is to make that happen.
For Indiana Newsdesk, I'm Pat Bean.
Before his 1 year at West Virginia, DeVries made his name at Drake, where he led the Bulldogs to 3 Missouri Valley Conference titles and 3 NCAA tournament appearances in 6 seasons. That's the end of this program, but our work continues online as we cover the news throughout the week at WTIUnews.org. Have a great weekend.
Indiana Newsdesk is made possible in part by Maller-Grodner Attorneys, providing legal services to clients and the community. Maller-Grodner Attorneys, understanding expertise results. Bloomington and Indianapolis. On the web at lawmg.com. IU Center for Rural Engagement, extending IU Bloomington resources to improve Hoosier lives in partnership with communities and organizations. rural.indiana.edu. Smithville, fiber internet, security solutions, and voice in Southern Indiana. More information at smithville.com. Bunger and Robertson, attorneys at law since 1949, utilizing experience, knowledge, and resources to help individuals and families recover in personal injury matters. Information at lawbr.com. And by WTIU members. Thank you.